Hello, guys, and welcome back to another meetup of A.I Gujarat with Deep Learning. And it's such a warm welcome. We have Suzanne Walsh, popularly known as the classification guru, and she's been doing some amazing stuff on LinkedIn and pretty funny and interesting to learn. So, without any further ado, I would like to invite her. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on Saturday weekend. And it means a lot. And for more interesting videos and meetups, do stay tuned to the channel coming ahead next weekend. Welcome, Suzanne, to the meetup. How
Hi,
have
thank
you
you.
been doing lately?
Yeah, I've been good actually, really busy, cleaning lots of dirty data. So yeah, it's been keeping me busy. So it's nice to see people focusing on their data more.
Okay, so if I would say that, can you define yourself in just 3 lines, which describes you, your work, and your passion? In just
Okay.
three
So
lines.
three, I'm a fixer of dirty data. Um,
Okay.
I am the creator of code and I love data.
Okay. So, how did you came up with the name of the classification guru? Yourself as Susan Walsh, the classification guru.
So, as you can probably tell by my background, I'm not a quiet, reserved, or introverted person. But within the data world, there are a lot of serious people, but I didn't feel like one of those people, and I knew that I was really good at spend data classification, but it's quite wordy. So I just thought I would shorten it to the classification guru because I thought, actually, I'm a bit of a guru. I do know what I'm talking about, even if nobody else does. And I didn't want to take myself too seriously. So that's where the name came from.
Okay, so as you defined in your description, you are the owner of Code or the founder of Code. So, what does Code stand for? And when you were naming it, what were your thoughts? And that how would people perceive the word code? Code as some. If we, as a normal person, hear code, we see that it help us to cover ourselves like a jacket or something. So, while naming that thing, what was you thinking about how would people and the data science community would interpret it and picture it out? So do you picture out things and see that how would community see it?
I wish I could say that this was a well planned and executed thing that I did, but it was by complete accident. I was going on a podcast and someone said, oh, people like acronyms, try and think of an acronym for what you do. So I started planning out what data should be. And so I came up with, accurate, it should be organized, it should be consistent. And I was like, oh, C-O and A, I need a T. What can it be? And I thought, oh, data needs to be trustworthy. So that is where it came from. And then actually, the great thing about saying make sure your data has its coat on is not only is that something that the data community can relate to, but just, your receptionist, your sales and marketing people, your finance team, your legal team, everybody who works with data can understand that acronym and apply it to how they're working. So yeah, it was a happy accident.
Okay. And before starting the session, one last question. Why did you choose the data cleaning field of data science? What were your thoughts and process while choosing this field? And I read your description today for making these questions. So you had written in your descriptions, you help the procurement team to help them get insights into data. So how does this help in the business idea in real world? Like we as the students and beginners that are starting their journey in data science don't really know that how things are actually used in business sense and how one can use these important tips and tricks. So what are your thoughts and say on it?
So I don't think I found data cleansing. I think it found me. I had another business, and when that failed, I needed a job. So I found an ad online, and applied for some data entry, data classification work, and that's how it started. I had never come from a data or a procurement background. I had been in sales, and done that type of work for large corporations, but I thought having a business background I'd be able to apply my knowledge to the data. So that's how it started. And actually I found that when I was doing it, I was really fast and really accurate, and I really enjoyed it. So it was really by chance. But then I honed my skills and built on them, and yeah, then became the classification guru. And I think one of the really important things is there are great technical data professionals out there. But what sometimes is missing, or what maybe they don't understand, is how the work they do fits into the wider organization and the consequences that it has. So what I really like to talk about is why your data needs to be clean, and the impact that it has on your whole organization, on your colleagues, if it's not right. And I think sometimes that's missing, especially at university level. There's a real focus on the
Yeah.
technical aspect, but not maybe the real life
Yes.
application of it. But also it
Yeah.
has to be in a
So
way that is
like
relatable to everybody.
yeah. So as you said, many things happen by luck in your favor. So do you think luck plays a very like some kind of role in your journey when you are doing stuff for your career or stuff? Like
Yeah,
you
I think.
said, the code thing went luck. The classification guru was luck, and
Yeah.
maybe your journey, your data entry was luck. So, do you think this superstitious or not superstitious, but luck things do really happen?
So I think hard work is more important than the luck. The harder you work, the more lucky you become. I heard that's a quote from someone. And if you watch a lot of business videos, every entrepreneur will say there's an element of right time, right place. But also, I have worked so hard over the last 3 years to build an awareness of something that people weren't talking about before. It was like a dirty little secret. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the glamorous
Yeah,
side of science. Let's not talk about the having to clean it. That's not. So I'm kind of bringing it out into the open and saying, no, we need to take this seriously, and appreciate it as a skill. It just like coding and
yeah.
writing, machine learning, and all that stuff. It's just as important. None of that would work without clean data.
Yeah. Like it's very important to get your data clean because you have some missing values in your data, and when you find out the mean, median mode, and train your model, it's just very relevant things that happen. So, without any further ado, we'll start the session. But before that, we have a video by Andrew NG, and he has some message for all viewers. So, before starting, we'll have a view at that video.
understand the huge impact that AI is having. Today, I'm putting together the next issue of Batch, our weekly newsletter, and I'm looking for the biggest stories of the week to keep our readers informed. What's the most surprising thing that working on how much there is never. You might think from the outside that machine learning engineers understand everything about AI, but nobody understands everything about AI. This field is just coming to life right now. So it's actually the best thing yet.
Right. It really doesn't sound that you can act complex. So let's go with Kim, who created deep learning specialization. He's working on a precisely project.
Yeah. So, do you want to tell people at A.I.M AI what you're working on?
That's true. The new project we're working on, we're focusing on everything that gets offers with AI and
That's right. Uh, it was a very great message by Andrew NG. And now, Suzanne, it's all yours. You can go ahead and start your session, and it's all
Brilliant.
yours.
Thanks very much. And thank you everyone for taking your time out to watch me today. So I'm going to be talking about the dangers of dirty data. And as I say, you guys could probably blow me out the water when it comes to the technical side of coding and things like that. But I'm going to kind of put that all into a bigger perspective and join all the dots together for you. So first thing is we've talked a little bit about this, but I'll tell you a little bit more about myself, my background. I'm going to talk about and define what is dirty data. Then I'm going to talk about the importance of data quality. And then the consequences when you don't have that data quality. What does the dirty data do? And then how can you ensure that data accuracy? And you might see a little appearance from Coat in there as well. And finally, I'm going to do some really quick spot check, show you how to spot check your data just in Excel. You don't need any tools. And it is a really great way of just gauging how your data is looking. And then we'll summarize that all at the end. So first of all, a little bit about myself, one of my favorite subjects. Who the hell am I? Why am I here talking to you right now? Well, I've had a really broad journey to get here. I started working for blue chip companies in sales and account management. Felt that really wasn't right for me, so I decided to open a clothes shop in Guildford where I live. It was a beautiful shop, lovely clothes, but it just couldn't sustain it. It was very expensive. So as I say, I was so desperate for work. I went and found an ad on Gumtree and went to work for Spend 360, which then became Coupa. And after 5 great years with them, I saw an opportunity that nobody else seemed to be talking about, which was the quality of the data. People were spending a lot of money on expensive dashboards that looked great, but actually the problem behind it was the data. So that's why I became the classification guru, and that is why I'm here talking to you today about this and sharing my knowledge with you. So let's talk about what is dirty data. People talk about it all the time, but what can we say it is? And it can be different things to different people depending on what area you're working in. But for example, it can be things like misspelled words. It can be incorrect descriptions. It can be things like missing codes, like if you have a lot of products, missing or incorrect codes or missing descriptions. It can be things like data in the wrong columns. And I know, especially with personal data, that can be quite a problem. You can have the whole address in one column, or it can be split among several, but you might have the city in the zip code column or something else. And it can be inconsistent amongst the data. Things like no standard units of measure. I see in files things like liters, LTR, L, grams, GRM, GM. So it can be quite messy because you're not comparing like for like when you're looking at your data. There can be things like currency issues. You might not realize that there's local currency in each of the columns. You can have formatting issues as well. So, I mean, I know we all use Excel and we've all seen what can sometimes happen in that. It can affect things that when you're doing VLOOKUPs, and it can be really frustrating. And finally, good old duplicates. We see lots of those everywhere. There's not anybody in the world that hasn't experienced some level of duplicates. So I work within spend data classification. So that's with procurement teams, and I'm classifying their financial data to show them what they're spending their money on. So here's some examples from my line of work that show you what can be dirty data. So this is a really great one to start with. It's LinkedIn, the supplier. We all know, we all use LinkedIn. That's probably how, well, that's certainly why I'm here now talking to you. But the description says restaurant, and someone that I had working for me classified it as restaurant. And it's, you know, you have to understand context when you are working with data. So looking at one column in a whole data set is not telling you the whole picture. You have to look at more columns. You have to look at things like the value, the supplier name, if there are other description columns to help guide you into making the right decision. Then we had Thomson Reuters. They're a huge publisher and do events, but if you Google them, it might look like they offer legal services, but no, it's more legal books and things like that. So that's another one. Again, it can be really quick things, and these can happen quite easily when you misread something. So the company is Thermal Installations, but someone thought it was thermal insulation. So it can be really subtle differences. Sometimes it doesn't have to be really obvious errors. Then this is one of my favorites, joke technology. Things like, again, this is when other columns are important. So I'm in the UK, so when I Google, it's going to come up with UK-based companies. And all that I was getting was joke companies with, fancy dress and things like that. And I knew that the client was a charity, so probably weren't spending their money with them. So then I looked at the company Germany. So then I started to Google with joke technology in Germany. And that's when it led me to find that they're actually a manufacturing components and supplies company. So really important lesson there, don't just trust the data, always do a bit of research, make sure that the other information stacks up with what you have, and use your context and your knowledge as well. And then finally, this is my favorite. So again, for the charity, Tinder Corporation. And Tinder globally is known as a dating app, but I was thinking this can't be right. No, not Tinder, surely not. I don't think they'd be advertising on that platform. It's not the kind of, it wouldn't sit right with their values. So when I did a little bit more digging, it turns out that there's a Tinder Corporation Limited here in the UK that is an IT services company. So again, it's, things might appear as one thing, or we might assume something, but actually it can be something very different. And, they're really great examples of where, it's very easy to make an error. So you need to check these things. But, I've shown you a few lines there. It's really easy to spot them when they're highlighted like this. But what if you're looking at whole rows and rows of data? It's really, really hard to spot these. They don't just stick out at you. If you look at your data regularly, then it might be easier for you to spot these things, but it's not easy. So how can we manage this? If you are classifying data, or even if you just, any kind of data you're working with, look at the different columns and look at them in combination to make sure everything looks all right. Would the company that you're working for or the data set that you're working on use this product or service or whatever it is you're doing? Would they, does it fit in? And, sometimes when you're classifying in particular, the value line is really good as a guide. So, for example, with hotels, if it's under £5,000, dollars, whatever, it probably is going to be accommodation. But if it's over that, it's more likely to be venue hire. Now, that's not something that you would necessarily know unless you'd worked in business for a while or worked with a lot of data. So things like that can be really helpful. And then, Google it. Does the description on the website match what the description in the data says? And if it doesn't, do some more digging. And yeah, Google. If it's new data, Google it just to make sure. But again, remember context. So, don't just go for the first option that comes up when you Google. And it's not just classification that this happens in. So it can be normalization as well. So a lot of organizations will normalize their suppliers to a standard name. It's quite common. And this is an example of a global data set where I have Granger, and it's been normalized to just Granger. But actually, there's Granger in the UK, which is a house builder and landlord, and then there's Granger in the US, which is MRO parts, which is nuts, bolts, screws, that kind of thing. So it's really important when you're doing this to actually check that it's the same company. And again, you have other columns that can help you with that, like the country, or if it's like departments within an organization or business owner or something like that, then it might stand out that, that's two different suppliers. So when you are normalizing, how can you manage this and keep in mind the following things I think is really helpful? Don't assume that you know who the company is and what they do. I think, Tinder Corporation's a really great example of that. That could have been normalized to the other Tinder. If you've got a global data set, there will be suffixes at the end of the supplier names a lot of the time. So Inc., Limited, PLC, SPZOO, SA, there's NV, BV. Google that company in its country and find out if it's the same thing. And, where is the supplier located? That's a really big clue as to whether it's the same or different. So that's a little bit about the dirty data, but, why is that important? Why does it matter? What's it to me? How does that affect me? Well, I'm sure you've all spent a lot of time trying to correct and fix messy, incorrect, unformatted data. If you can manage that on an ongoing basis, you will save time, so much time, and it will make your life a lot easier. It's really costly to rectify. So, if you have been managing incorrect, bad data for a long period of time, it's going to cost a lot of money and time to fix it. And it's going to cause a lot of pain having to fix it as well. And ultimately, this data that you're working with is going to affect decision-making process by people that you work with or more senior within your organization. You might think that you're just working on a small project and, nobody's going to notice it. But actually, that information can be used widely in the business and used to make decisions. So it's really important that it's accurate. And it affects all different kinds of departments and divisions within the company. So it affects sales, it affects marketing, it affects forecasting, inventory, it affects procurement, it affects finance. If sales and marketing decide to run a promotion on something but don't tell inventory, then are you going to have enough stock to cover that promotion? And then do procurement know about it because they'll need to buy in more parts? It's a huge knock-on effect that we don't always think about. And, dirty data does make your life difficult. You probably nodding away knowing this. If you are new to the data world, then you will experience this, and it is completely normal and it will be very frustrating. So anything that we can do to minimize that is, good things. So I've just given you a little example of how it affects things, but what are the consequences? They can be pretty catastrophic sometimes. So things like reporting and decision making, it can affect things like cost savings for the business, supplier negotiations, supplier rationalization. So if you have IBM, I.B.M, IBM Inc., IBM Limited, that's all But when you're running reports, because you haven't normalized your supplier, you think you have like 4 or 5 suppliers when actually you only have one. So it's really great to help manage that. Things like forecasting, as I spoke about, are there promotions and things coming up? Or, are we expecting a dip because COVID now? Is this being factored in? Budgets. So if people are assigning costs to the wrong department, that can affect people's budgets. It can affect things like job decisions. Should we grow the company? What should we do? Should we move? It covers every area of an organization. And when you have those unnormalized suppliers, sometimes it can be hard to explain it to you, show you in pictures, but visually, that's when, you really see the difference. So think about this in wherever you're working. You have all these suppliers, and your senior management team are looking at how much money they're spending with each of those suppliers. But actually, guess what? There's not all those suppliers. There's only a handful there. So if we normalize them, there's only 4 suppliers. It's a big difference. And suddenly our costs with PwC have skyrocketed because we didn't realize there was like 4 or 5 different versions of their account or their name within our systems. And you can have multiple systems where things are named differently as well. It can be hard to tally everything up. So when we look at it side by side, you can see the difference. Can you imagine having to make a decision on something based on the left graph versus the right graph? Which one would you rather make a decision on? So it might look just like an error in a spreadsheet to you, but actually when it rolls up, it can be really, really make a difference. And it's the same with data classification. This is a real life example where I had IBM as a supplier and there was some cleaning services classified to IT products. So the initial chart or reporting would look like this. Now you would look at that and say, okay, well, it sticks out straight away. But if it's a small amount, it's not going to show up very obviously, potentially, if people don't know what they're looking for. So if we correct that, get rid of cleaning services, suddenly our graphs change again, and suddenly we're making better decisions based on some good data. And it's the same with technology implementation. So data cleansing is often neglected pre-implementation of software. It's something that's just kind of swept under the carpet. No, we'll look at that another time, or we don't want to pay the money for that. Quite often the errors are only discovered post-implementation. By this point, thousands, if not millions of pounds, dollars, euros, whatever have been spent trying to implement this, training staff up. Then staff start using it and they lose faith in the data. They're disengaged. They say it doesn't work. They don't trust it because it's wrong, and they go back to using their old systems, and suddenly your expensive software is redundant. So it's going to cost a lot of money to fix. It's much easier to cleanse your data at the start of a project than in the middle. You're going to have to, if you do fix it, you're going to have to hope that your staff adopt that new technology again and learn to trust it. The project could be abandoned, and a lot of money has been lost, and a lot of time and effort by people within an organization. And some of you may have even experienced that on a small or large scale within the organizations that you work. But it's not just technology implementation, it's AI and machine learning as well. That is affected. The data must be cleansed and prepared beforehand. It is so vitally important. And that is because AI is learning from data sets. So it has to learn from accurate data. Otherwise, it's going to perpetuate this problem of bad data continually being used. So a great example is IBM again. If that data set with the cleaning services had been used as a training data set for AI to classify in the future, what might start as £20,000 as cleaning services could go to 40, and then 60, and then 80, and then 100K, and then suddenly it becomes a really big problem. And, you know, if it had just been cleansed at the start, then that wouldn't have happened. Same things with machine learning, you know, it's instructive coding, so that has to be right. If you are looking at data sets to build that coding, make sure it's accurate data that you're looking at, because otherwise you could be making more work for yourself and causing more hassle. And it's true what they say about the old adage of rubbish in, rubbish out. It's never been truer than right now, I would say. And, you know, we've seen that even with COVID reporting, you know, the data that's collected is so different in each country and even within regions that you can't compare like for like. So, you know, it's really important to get that right at the start. So how do we ensure that? I mean, it seems like such a pain in the bottom to have to deal with and manage, but it's really important that we do. And it doesn't have to be difficult. It really doesn't. You know, there is no quick fix. There is no magic button. There is no software in the world that will fix this problem for you. So if you accept that, then I think that's a really great start as to working towards better data quality. Any unseen data needs to be reviewed by a person or a human, and someone who knows the area of the business that you're working in. You know, you can have a perfect code script to do something with the data, but the output might look terrible to the person using the data. So you need to work in combination with subject matter experts to make sure that you're getting the right thing. And get your whole organization involved. Data is everybody's responsibility. It's not just yours. It's not just mine. It's not just, you know, Bob in the corner in IT who has to look after everything. Every single one of us who inputs data has to take responsibility and ownership for it, because as you've seen, it rolls up. And we have to agree common standards, terms, and processes to make sure that is
Okay.
all. Hi.
Before so like how you told, get the whole organization involved.
Yeah.
Data is everyone's responsibility. So we have a question: how do we get our team on board with making sure our data has its quote on? So I think it's quite relevant, and it
Yeah.
would be
Well,
nice.
funnily enough, yeah, there will be some more quote coming up as well. So it's explaining to people their part in the process. So if you're working in procurement and you are, or finance, for example, or, you know, you're an employee and you're putting your expenses into the system. This is a really good one because I see a lot of problems with this. You might think, oh, I've got a load of travel expenses, so I'll just put it as travel. But actually within that travel expense, you've got hotels, taxis, food. And it's really important that that gets broken down so that the organisation can see how much they're spending. They could potentially negotiate like a corporate rate with a hotel and save money, which means you get a better hotel for a cheaper price. But if you don't explain that to the people that are using the information and they don't understand that, then and if there's not something in it for them, then it's going to be really hard. So it's about making their life easier. It's about making your life easier. It's about making the organization's life easier. And it'll really depend on the type of work that they're doing. So you have to tailor it to whatever they're doing. So I can't say to you now, there's one standard phrase that you can say to every single person working with data that will suddenly get them to make it accurate. You have to talk to the department or the team and get them involved in it, and then talk to them on their level about how it's going to affect them or what benefits they'll get from doing it properly. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, so like, yes, you can go ahead with agree common standards, terms and process.
Yeah. So yeah, are we going to use liters or grams? Are we going to spell it all the same way? You know, are we going to put our hotel expense in as a hotel rather than just travel? Are we going to type someone's name in properly? Are we going to have a format for the addresses and how we put them into the system? So, you know, line 1 will be the first line of the address, line 2 will be the second, line 3 will be the city, and line 4 will be the post or zip code. You know, are we going to do it that way? Because it will help everyone out. And it's great if you like fix your data or pay someone to fix it and it's new and shiny and perfect, but it's more important to maintain it, because if you are not looking at it regularly, and again, this is getting everybody involved and flagging up when things don't look right, you are going to have a situation where you're back to square one with really bad data. So it's really important to maintain it on a regular basis. Now, depending on the volume of data you're working with, that could be monthly or quarterly or 6 monthly. Generally, I would say quarterly is a good amount of time to check your data. Not too much time has gone by, but there's enough time to have a good volume of data to check. And spot check as well. So don't just maintain it, but, you know, just go in every now and again and do a quick search. And I'll show you further on how to do that. But, you know, just test it, because things change. You know, people accidentally delete things. They overwrite things. They decide that actually, I don't think it should be that. I think it should be this. So yeah, go in and do that and just try and keep on top of it. So there's one really good way to ensure you have data accuracy, and that is our quote. So as we were talking about, it has to be consistent. It has to be organized. So think of a messy closet. You've got your favorite top in there somewhere, but you have no idea where it is. But if you had organized your closet into tops, trousers, dresses, it would be really easy for you to just go in and take it out. Data is very much the same as that. It's when you get a raw file, it's data that's all over the place. So organize it into groups, or, you know, it could be categorize it or group it by department or division or by country. Make it as easy as possible to find what you need. And of course, it has to be accurate. So accurate data, again, can mean different things, but at its basic level, it has to be correct. There is absolutely no point in working with incorrect data. And when you have all those things, you can then have trustworthy data. And that's really important, because you want yourself to be able to make the best decisions, the right decisions. You don't want to get, you know, told off or potentially even fired for making the wrong decision because you were using bad data. And you certainly don't want that to happen to someone else either. So that's quote. So I've, you know, said why and how, and, you know, why it's important and what the consequences are, but how can you actually, you know, what can you take away from this today that will actually give you the tool to go and have a look at your own data? So we all know everybody's using loads of different tools out there. So I am using Excel as an example. Now, Excel is not my favorite tool. It can be an absolute nightmare to work with, but this what I'm about to show you, anyone within your organization could take this and use it. It's not difficult to do. So the first thing I want to show you is, this is a classified data file because it's a really simple example of how to show you what to do. So I have created a pivot table from the data. I've taken the normalized name and then the segment class commodity, which is the classified columns. Now, the view when you first get it is just a row of data. It's no use. So you want to change it to tabular form. And that means that when you are scrolling down your data, you can actually see where things stand out and don't look quite right. So for example, down the bottom here, there's this is a food service company, but there's some transportation classification there. So that doesn't look quite right. So then you can go back into your raw data and start to change those classifications. But it can be quite time consuming, flipping between the tabs, and you want to make that process as easy as possible. So if you go to new window, you then want to select all and arrange all even. And then you want to choose vertical and arrange it vertically. And what that means is that you will have your two tabs side by side. You can change one to the pivot and one to the raw data. And what that means is now you can scroll down your pivot on the left. You can change your raw data on the right. And then when you've made any changes, you can refresh all in your pivot table, and that will take out anything that's incorrect. So it means that you're not going over the same incorrect information all the time. And when you've got lots of data, that's really helpful. Now, you might have a supplier or a department with a huge amount of rows. And we know that working in Excel can be really hard. It struggles, it crashes, it freezes. You can lose data. So to make it as easy and as quick as possible, if you have a large amount of data, copy that data into a new tab. And then, as I've just showed you, create a new pivot table. And then it means that with that one supplier, you can then start look for those things that don't look quite right. So it just makes it a little bit easier. And then you can do a VLOOKUP to pull that new information back in. So that is my quick whistle-stop tour of what is dirty data, what are the consequences, why you need accurate data, how you can get accurate data, and also how you can spot check that data. I think the really important thing to say is that accurate data is critical. There are no shortcuts to this. It does involve some hard work. You have to know your data. You have to maintain your data to make sure that it stays correct. It does make your life easier. And you've got to make sure your data has its coat on. Now, I'm happy to email out any of the how to check your data slides. You can find me at susan@theclassificationguru.com and also at LinkedIn. I have one last little video to show you about quote. I don't know, you may have seen it already, you may not have, but enjoy.
Okay, I'll do it wholesale.
Temperatures without the correct protection. So why do so many companies forget to protect their data? Unprotected data can lead to bad business decisions that cost money and put jobs at risk. That's why your data needs its coat on. This means making sure your data is consistent, organized, accurate, and trustworthy. Consistent means using the same standards, terms, and classifications company-wide. Organized data makes it easier to find. Think of it like a messy closet. It can be difficult to find what you're after, even when you know it's in there. When organized correctly, it becomes easier to find what we want. Data should be accurate, which can mean different things to different people, but at its most basic level, accurate data is correct. And finally, data should be trustworthy. This is critical. If your team can't trust the data, they might not use it. And business decisions around jobs, staffing, and budgets are all based on data, so it's got to be right. Like any code, there are differences in the quality of data services out there. If you buy a cheap coat, it might not be waterproof or protect you enough, and it won't last more than one season. If you don't invest in good quality data services, you will end up paying twice as much, if not more in the long run, to fix the earlier mistakes. If you'd like to speak to an expert about data in your own business, visit theclassificationguru.com.
So an answer to the question earlier, how can you get your organization involved more? Show them that video, show them something that's easy for them to relate to. or any video that is good at explaining it at a really in simple terms.
Okay. So now we have some questions for you coming up. Is
Oh,
it
good.
okay if we start this? Yeah. So there's this one question that is coming up your way now on your screen now.
Yeah.
Isn't cleaning the data part of the role of a data engineer and not a data scientist? And how much of data cleansing does a data scientist should have to know?
So I think that really depends on where you're working. I think different organizations have different titles for the same job. So you may be a data scientist in one company, but you may be a data something else in this company. I think we should all, well, if we're working with data, I think we should all know the basics on how to check and clean data. But actually it's a skill within itself. So if you have someone that enjoys it and is good at it, then use them within your team. Unfortunately, sometimes you will find that you are the person that has to do it. So if you check it and maintain it regularly, then you're going to make your life a lot easier. And use some processes if you can get some software to help you. I have a YouTube channel. I've got a couple of videos. I use some software called Omniscope, which really speeds up the process. So, if you've got other tools that you can use to help you, but I don't think that it should be one person's responsibility to clean data. I think we all have to know, at least know the basics.
So we have a surprise guest for you joining us now for the Q&A, and that is Ravit. And he has some. Okay, so everyone, Ravit is a senior marketing manager at Path Publishing, and he has some questions for you, Suzanne. So go ahead, Sid.
Oh, great. I haven't seen you in so long, Ravit. How are you?
Okay, Suzanne has just been kidding. She just saw me yesterday. We had a good meeting. Suzanne is a great friend, but Suzanne, amazing weekend plan you have had to teach everyone out here, and thank you for doing that. And I've been, backstage looking at everything and learning so much. Thanks for doing that.
God.
And I have a quick question for you. All these things. Actually, 2-3 questions. Manpreet, can I go ahead with 2-3 questions?
Go for it.
Okay. So first question is, who's been your role model, in data field? Who's that person who you look after?
You know what? I kind of didn't have a role. I learned everything on the job and did it myself because I didn't train in data science, and I didn't network with any other data professionals until I had started my business. So I kind of did this all on my own. But since I have had my business, as you know, I'm in this network with the most amazing data professionals. There's Scott Taylor, Kate Strachney, you're in the group. There's Jennifer Cooper, Kimberly, Danny Ma. I'm going to forget everyone's names now. Tom. So I take pieces from everybody. I think because I kind of span over different parts of the data process, I kind of know little bits about each of the process, but none of it in detail. Just a little bit of everybody. But there's such a great data community on LinkedIn, I have to say. And everyone's really supportive and really happy to share their knowledge, which is great. It's not protective. Like, oh, I'm not going to tell you this, it's mine. Everyone wants to share what they know. So yeah, it's a great place to find your inspiration.
Exactly. And
so with respect to your Yeah, so
Go
with
ahead.
respect to your this question, I had this. You like there's a lot of people now, and lot of big data community that has been built on LinkedIn. So, do you feel that competition or something that is happening, or do you feel, oh, if I don't post today, would I lose that edge with my viewers, or like, will my presence get lost on LinkedIn if I don't? Do you have that jealousy factor? You ever had that jealousy factor with the
Yeah.
people or something?
Well, yeah, I have a coach that I work with to help me work on my mindset, because a year ago, yeah, I would have absolutely been completely insecure that other people were posting and not me. Now I'm really much more confident in my abilities. Also, I mean, if you know my posts, not all my posts are serious or data related. In fact, I've got a really fun video coming up later tonight that I'm going to post. So I'm not trying to compete with anybody else. I'm just trying to do my own thing and have fun. And if I think we're really lucky that within what we're all doing different things, and we're all the known people or experts within that field. So I don't feel like there's competition, and certainly I started within the procurement world. I fell into the data world by accident. So I never expected to be welcomed so greatly, which has been fantastic. But I don't really see anybody else out there talking about data classification and taxonomies and normalization. It was never, everyone knows about it, but nobody was ever really talking about it, and certainly not in a way that other people who were non-specialists would understand. So I feel pretty confident at the moment that, even if I miss a day or two, I'll be back, and there'll be more likes again.
Susan, I don't think you'll ever be jealous of anything, because it's you who would make everyone jealous with your post, those creative posts which you put on LinkedIn. Everyone needs to follow Susan, the classification guru, for sure, because
I'm just being me, and I'm just having fun. And actually, I'm not caring what other people think. I think if I really sat down and thought about my posts, I might be like, oh,
No,
what's
it's like because yeah, it's generally because when we as students or beginners start writing on LinkedIn and see like, oh, he's getting so likes, my content is not. So as a beginner, I had gone to that phase that
yeah.
I feel little bit. Oh, I was writing and I was not getting recognized. So that, but with time you realize how you should put your content and engagement. So the next question by one of our viewers is that how did you earn the title of the classification guru?
I think I just was better at classifying data than anyone that I worked around, and that's how I gave myself the title. But I welcome any challengers. Bring it on. But I just wanted to say actually about LinkedIn as well. It's a really good point. Like, LinkedIn engagement doesn't happen overnight. I've been doing this for over a year. I've built this up slowly and steadily. So don't be disappointed if you don't get that many likes, but keep going. You have to just keep going, and you refine your posts, and you find out what works and what doesn't work, and you'll get there in the end. Oh, don't upset.
Yeah, Ved, you can go ahead with your question now.
okay, so one interesting question, because Suzanne, I belong to the book community more of, I've been working with all the authors and all of those people. So, I have a curious question. I know one thing for sure, that you are planning to write a book. We want to know more about it. I don't know if it's the right platform to, speak about it, but then it's about you. So we want to know.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to talk about it. So, no title as yet, but what I want to do is I want to write a book so that anyone in an organization could pick it up and get something out of it. So if you are just working in finance or IT, sales, marketing, you could pick it up and understand and get something from it and understand why data is important and the accuracy. But then also, I want to give something to the people who are already working in data, who are already classifying data, but want to be more efficient and more accurate at it. So there'll be, information in there for them too. And then I want people to think about data in a fun way. This is not going to be a serious book. This is going to be like the shiny background equivalent of books. It's going to be fun. It's going to be my tone. So we'll have some data nightmares in there as well, when things go wrong. And that is my plan. But I have to start writing it first. Oh, and can't forget Quote. Quote will be in there as well.
Wow. And when do you plan to, get it released? Is it happening next year?
Hopefully in about a year.
Amazing.
Also, can you share an interesting project or use case that you did and you're very proud of that you did it and you're like, yeah, I did it.
Just finished a project, 2.3 million rows of data, classified and normalized, and I built a customized taxonomy for them as well over 8 weeks. So the whole lot was done in 8 weeks. And that was all manually. There was no AI or automation involved in that classification. It was all hard work. So yeah, I'm really pleased. But I think,
Ravid, do you have any question?
I think I'm done for now, but I'll get back to Suzanne with many queries about data. And I would suggest everyone to reach out to her. She's very sweet. She will help you out and get you through all the data problems. She is the classification guru for sure. So
thanks. Actually, and something I do get people asking me quite a bit on LinkedIn is a lot of people are looking for jobs at the moment. And it's really tough. And, how do you get a job without experience? So, if you're in that situation, go on to freelancer websites. There's, Upwork and things like that. And just take on little jobs and you might make no money from them. But it's really great experience just to, pick up that, that you can then put on your CV. And every little bit helps. And get on LinkedIn and, connect with those people who you think about the companies you want to work at. Connect with the people that work there and start posting and get on their radar, engage with them, but don't just jump right in and go, give me a job, build up that relationship. Yeah. So
I certainly, also like the point where you mentioned about, nowadays people have been, getting into the LinkedIn and they feel, okay, there's this post, I will try and post it, but I don't get the likes. Why so? And why is the other opposite person whom they are obviously looking as an influencer getting so much likes for the same post? But the point there is about the time. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes a lot of time to, gauge your audience, get them to a level where they understand, okay, Suzanne would be posting something around the data and which will help us, and they'll start relating to it over time. Give that space, give that time, and things will fall in place. Thanks, Suzanne, for this.
Great advice.
Yeah,
okay, guys.
I guess Ravid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I should make.
Oh, he's gone.
Okay, so I have a question. How should a beginner should focus on data cleaning, and while they're making their career into data science, how should they focus on the data cleaning part when they are doing this?
Okay, so the data cleaning as a job, because that's really
no.
Sorry.
So they're starting to explore data science.
Okay.
So how important that should be in mind, like data cleaning is an also important important thing in data science, not just building models and training models and doing visualizations.
So yeah, it's really important because your model might not work because your data's wrong. but you might spend ages trying to tweak the model, thinking it's the model that's the problem. So, it doesn't have to take hours. It could just be get familiar with the columns, the formatting, how things should look, so that when the model runs, you might have a column and it's name, and then there's numbers, and it's going to stand out. And again, if you have that one column, you can pivot that and have an aggregated view of it, so it's easier to scroll down and check for anything that sticks out. You can do it on one column or you can do it on multiple columns. It doesn't have to be a really big job. Obviously, cleaning data you have to be thorough, but and maybe that is someone else's job, but as a data scientist, you should at least know how to do it and how the data should look before you start your models. Because at the end of the day, you're helping yourself. You could be saving lots of time.
Okay, so before we end, I have just last 2 or 3 interesting questions, not related to data science or something. So, while going through your profile, I found out that you have a blog on LinkedIn feature about 3 years in your business.
Yes.
And so, what advice would you give yourself 3 years back? Like, dear Suzanne, don't worry or something. So what is that one advice would you give yourself 3 years back when you were in that business now?
I'd say you need more money and you need more time. Everything takes longer to happen than you think it will. But then I'd also say you will not believe where you will be in 3 years' time, and you wouldn't even have imagined what was possible. So I did an interview 6 months ago, just before lockdown, and in it I spoke about one day I hoped to have a team working for me, and one day I hoped to write a book, and in 6 months that's all happened. So yeah, and just keep working hard.
Okay, so alongside with your work, you might have some hobbies and passions. So how do you manage all these stuff? Do you have any? And how do you manage?
I have a terrible work-life balance. I think building a business, I have put everything into it. So that is where all my time goes. I used to really enjoy going to the gym and spinning, and I need to try and get that balance back. Because I've just, it's a 24-hour job.
Also, last question. Which Disney character do you relate yourself to? And you see as an inspiration, okay, that character is something I feel very connected to.
I love that question. Oh, who would I be? Oh my goodness. That's
it
really
seems that it seems that in your work you did not watch any movie recently.
Maybe a bit kind of Dory, just keep swimming. You just got to keep going, no matter how tough it is. You just got to keep going. And I am a bit forgetful as well, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Suzanne, it was so nice talking to you, and it was such a lovely conversation and learning. I was listening everything at the back end, and you are awesome, and I hope our viewers like it. And there's some comments for you that you are inspiring. Great webinar, and people can't just wait to read your book. And the last one that we have is that EAQ quote. I love the acronym so much. Very straightforward, yet very excited.
Great, thank you. And I do have more quote videos. If you go to the classification YouTube channel, there's more quote videos as well. I even turn into the Hulk in one of them.
Okay. So we'll take the leave, and I hope everyone liked it. And for more upcoming videos, subscribe and follow Suzanne, and subscribe and follow A.I.M Learning also, so that you get good awesome content from me. that I try to bring. And okay, bye. Happy weekend, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Suzanne.
Bye.